How can the central limit theorem be applied to correct biases in a sample data set and improve the reliability of statistical conclusions, particularly in datasets with inherent biases? The central limit theorem, CLT, states that the sampling distribution of the sample means approaches a normal distribution as the sample size becomes large, regardless of the shape of the population distribution. This property can be used to address and mitigate biases when the original data may not be perfectly representative or may be skewed. By taking multiple samples and calculating their means, one can use the distribution of these means, which will be approximately normal according to the CLT, to make more accurate inferences about the population parameters, such as those arising from non-random sampling or systematic errors in data collection. The CLT helps by providing a basis for inferential statistics that can be more reliable, assuming sufficient sample size and independent sampling. It allows analysts to use hypothesis testing or construct confidence intervals around the mean, which are less sensitive to certain types of sampling biases than the raw data itself. Evaluate the effectiveness of different techniques for identifying bias in statistical data analysis. Which technique is most effective for large datasets and why? Several techniques are employed to identify bias in statistical data analysis, including data visualization, statistical tests for bias, and advanced analytical models like regression analysis. For large datasets, machine learning algorithms, particularly those designed for anomaly detection and pattern recognition, are particularly effective. Techniques such as decision trees, random forests, or neural networks can handle large volumes of data and identify complex patterns and anomalies that may indicate bias. These techniques are effective because they can automatically process large amounts of data and detect subtle patterns of bias, such as interactions between variables that are not immediately apparent. Machine learning models can also be trained to recognize instances of known biases and then scan the dataset for similar instances. This scalability and depth of analysis make them particularly suitable for large datasets where manual checking is impractical. Describe the steps you would take to address partiality, preference, and prejudice during the collection and analysis phases of a study on voting behavior across different demographic groups. What statistical methods and safeguards would you implement to ensure unbiased results? Addressing bias in a study of voting behavior involves careful planning in both data collection and analysis. Data collection, data analysis, safeguards. Data collection. Implement randomized sampling techniques to ensure that the sample is representative of the population. Use stratified sampling to guarantee that all demographic groups are proportionally represented according to their presence in the population. Also, ensure that data collectors are trained to avoid introducing bias during the collection process, example, through leading questions or selective recording. Data analysis. Begin with exploratory data analysis to identify any anomalies or patterns indicating bias. Use statistical tests like chi-square tests for independence to check for biases in the distribution of responses across different demographic groups. Employ regression analysis to control for potential confounders and ensure that any observed effects are due to the variables of interest rather than underlying biases. Continually verify and validate the data collection and analysis methods with external audits. Use blind analysis techniques where the data analysts do not know the hypothesis being tested to prevent confirmation bias. Additionally, regularly update the statistical models and techniques used to reflect new understanding and methods in the field of bias detection. By meticulously planning the collection process and rigorously analyzing the data with an awareness of potential biases, one can significantly reduce the influence of partiality, preference, and prejudice, leading to more reliable and valid results in the study.